are back. We are back. We are back. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is Coaching Connections. But before I get started, I want to take a quick second to say thank you. Thank you so much to everybody that played a part in allowing us to have a season this year. I'm grateful for our administration. We had unbelievable support from our athletic office. Our family support was amazing. Without you guys, none of this would have been possible. And I'm so full of gratitude that our athletes had a chance to experience the season and also have some success and just get to play the game they love. So thank you all so much for your support. And I hope everybody out there listening had an opportunity to do something similar. But without further ado, this is Coaching Connections, season number 2, episode number 1. On today's episode, we have Coach Chuck Martin from the University of South Carolina. Now, Chuck has an unbelievable story. He and I had a blast talking about everything from life to basketball and everything in between. I hope you enjoyed this episode just as much as I know he and I did. This is episode number 1 of season 2, Coaching Connections. Chuck Martin, let's get after it.
What's up, brother? I appreciate you having me, man.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I appreciate your patience trying to figure this whole Zoom thing, technology.
No, I love doing it. And usually what we do is someone in our office usually organizes it. So they usually send it to him, and then he sends it to me. He sets it all up.
Just show up and do it, do the work.
And do it. But my wife, honestly, my wife just bailed me out.
Yeah, well thank you, Miss Martin.
Yeah, she bailed me out. So you doing okay, brother?
I'm good, man. What about yourself?
I'm doing great, man. Just, long year like everybody else. And just kind of excited that the country and the world is moving in the right direction with the vaccine and giving us all confidence to move forward and close to normalcy.
Absolutely.
What we consider normalcy.
Absolutely. And I'm thankful for our leadership. I know where I work, our leadership was great about working through the pandemic, giving us the support we needed. Our boys were able to, and all the athletics programs in our school had an opportunity to have a season. And without them, shoot, they could have just shut us down if they wanted to. And I had a lot of friends that didn't even get to play anything. But great administration.
Yeah, same here, man. I've got friends in the business, high school, college, Division II, Division III, who they didn't get a chance to participate at all. Yeah. They just couldn't do it. And they didn't have the resources to get tested. And it's a shame because those kids worked really hard. And the coaches, as you know, prepare for this season, this moment. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, you can't do it. It's devastating. So I'm grateful that we were able to get through it. But I'm also happy it's over because it was for us, it was a disaster. So I'm happy it's over and we can hit the restart button, the reset button, and get back to doing what we do. Absolutely.
It was those long, like you said, we tested every Tuesday.
Okay.
So Wednesday was the day we got our results, and Wednesday morning. Mm-hmm. So every Wednesday morning, I'm sitting in my office, man. I hope my phone doesn't ring. I hope my phone doesn't. Yeah. I hope my phone. And then so one day, one of our athletic directors called me on a Wednesday about nothing to do with COVID testing, and I was like, "You can't call me on a Wednesday morning and freak me out." I'm thinking, man, now we got to sit down. Send me a text message or call me on Thursday.
Right. We were the same way. We were sitting by the phone. We were getting tested 3 times a week. So the anxiety of like, yo, am I clear, not clear? And then I got it. So I was done for 2 weeks and I missed 2 games, the Missouri, the LSU game. Then Frank got it. So he missed 2 games. It was a disaster, man. It really was. But yeah. But that being said, there were other people who had it worse.
Absolutely.
Obviously, it was terminal for some people. So I'm grateful that we were able to fight our way through it and see ourselves on the other side, so to speak.
Well, we're kind of already there. Like, what were some of the things that you guys faced? Like, you talk about the anxiety. You had it. Frank had it. Anything else that you guys had to deal with?
I think the hardest part was like the uncertainty. So every week, from week to week, you didn't know who you were going to have at practice.
Yeah.
So you had to change your schemes offensively and defensively because, if you got it, right, for us in South Carolina, they shut the whole program down.
Okay.
So it wasn't like, one guy got it and the other 13 guys continued to practice. Mm. So everybody was shut down. And then, some kids didn't recover as quickly from it. So that being said, you had to figure out, well, we don't have 2 starters. We gotta play small ball.
Yeah.
So let's start getting reps at this new action that we're trying to run before the Tennessee game, before the Kentucky game. And then right before you play those games, you get a phone call like, oh, yeah, the point guard is out too. So now it's like you're playing small ball with a backup point guard and a backup 3-man. So it was a challenge because you didn't know from week to week. And, some people say, well, everyone dealt with it. But that wasn't necessarily true because some schools like Alabama, I'll give you an example. Alabama, I want to say 12 of their guys got it in August.
Wow.
So they dealt with it, and then they weren't disrupted the rest of the year. Where we were disrupted during the season.
Yeah.
So we got it in October, then we got it in November, then we got it in December. So it's 2 weeks, they shut you down. And then the protocol for us was the first day out of quarantine, you can only do 25% activity. The second day was 50%. The third day was 75%. The fourth day was 100%. But the fourth day essentially is 18 days later.
Yeah.
Which is almost 3 weeks. So it's unheard of to go 3 weeks without doing anything. Then all of a sudden you play Kentucky.
Yeah.
It's not going to work.
You're out of shape. You're no rhythm, no timing on the floor.
Yeah.
Everything's out of sync.
Yeah. And there were games where we played the Tennessee game without practicing. We tried to avoid it because they're hard to beat when you have practice.
Yeah.
And but now we went into the Tennessee game. We flew in the night before. We shot around the day of, and then we played the game. I mean, that's a hard thing for anyone to do. So those were some of the challenges that were, not easy to overcome.
I'll say as far as some of the teams that didn't have to shut down, like for us, we were fortunate that not one time this year. We're the only program in our school and our district and our competing, conference that didn't have to shut down. I mean, and I don't know, I'll say this, last year when COVID hit around this time,
right?
About 2 weeks before that, 8 of my guys got sick, and they just said flu-like. They didn't really know what happened, and we were playing really good ball, and all of a sudden they just went down like flies, and I couldn't stop it. We tried our best to contain it.
Right.
We didn't know what COVID was. We just thought, oh, they got a bug. And then, you look a few weeks later, the whole world shuts down, and it's hard to think that maybe it wasn't because this year none of those guys caught it. They didn't catch it once.
Right.
And then the 2 guys that didn't get it last year caught it in August this year. So they got it out of the way, so to speak. And
right.
So we were fortunate. It's still a level of anxiety that you don't want them to catch it again. And
exactly.
But I guess we were fortunate in that regard. But, I mean, with all of that being said, I'm just glad we could play. All of us had a chance to get after it.
Yeah. Yeah, we needed it. It's how long have you been coaching now?
Well, as a head coach, this is my 7th year as a head coach, 11 total.
So you've been doing this, quite a long time. So it's become, a part of your routine.
Yes, sir.
And then all of a sudden, someone takes that routine away, and it's like, yo, what am I doing? I'm at home. I should be at practice. I should be, with my staff. So it's to your point, it was great to just play, although it wasn't normal, and we were disrupted. It was better than not playing. It just I don't know what you would do, if they just canceled the whole season. It would be hard for us.
Hard for us as coaches, and I feel so bad for those seniors.
Absolutely, yeah, hard thing, man, hard thing for sure.
Well, I appreciate you sharing those thoughts, Coach. That's great insight. I've talked to coaches in our area, but I haven't talked to many people too far outside of Texas about what they experienced and how they handled it and dealt with it.
Yeah, the toughest thing I think was also early on, no one really knew what it was.
Yeah.
So like you had an idea, but it was like, oh, it's like the flu. And then it's like, well, it's a little bit stronger than the flu. Yeah. So no one really knew what to deal with. Like if you have an enemy or adversity, like if you know what it is, then you know how to attack it.
Yeah,
or you can come up with a game plan.
Mm-hmm.
And but no one really knew exactly what this thing was. So it felt like you were guessing from week to week. You need a mask. No, you don't need a mask. It's not airborne. Oh, yeah. Hey, it is airborne.
Yeah.
You can practice with gloves. No, you don't need gloves. It was like, yo, what are we doing? So that was probably like the hardest part, like not knowing what is it that we're dealing with.
Yeah.
And so you felt like you could never come up with a real game plan to try to attack it.
Fortunate for us as far as basketball goes, and especially in high school, you got football, volleyball. We got to see what they did and didn't do and how they operated and what worked and what didn't work. So by the time basketball got here, I think, for us, we had a decent idea, but even then it still felt like it was evolving as
Yeah,
we were going. The protocols kind of shifted a little bit.
yeah. The strangest thing for us, I think, was we played in a preseason event in Kansas City, which was like a big time venue. It's usually one of the sites for the NCAA tournament.
Mm-hmm.
And we had two games there. I think we played Liberty, who was really good, and we played Tulsa. And when we walked in, for the pregame warmups, it was our first game.
Mm-hmm.
There was nobody in attendance. It's a 20,000 seat arena, and we're used to, whether it's home or on the road, even if it's not a great crowd, you still got 10,000, maybe 15,000 people. And it was weird. It was like, there's literally no one. And I just remember, like, this is completely different from anything I've ever experienced. Because, the referees are there. You can clearly hear them. They can clearly hear us.
Yeah.
And it was just weird. It was like a 20,000 seat arena with nobody in it. It was you would make a big play and you were accustomed to momentum swing for the opposing team if you were on the road, or momentum for us if we were at home, but it was neutral. There was no noise. You hit a big three, it was just quiet.
Yeah.
Had a big dunk, it was just quiet.
100%, Coach. And I try to stress to our guys, like, we're going to have to depend on ourselves.
Yes.
To provide that energy, because we go to some gyms and they don't allow fans, and some gyms do allow fans. But we can't guess from game to game. We're just going to have to do it ourselves. And it's tough. It's tough, but definitely different.
That was different, man. It caught all of us off guard. And I think it took us like maybe, like 6 to 7 games, to be honest, because you felt like, okay, let's do this again. Let's see what it feels like again. And you walked in, it was empty. We played at Houston, and that was when they were starting to transition and let, I think, a percentage of people in. Mm-hmm. And that was still weird, because all of a sudden you had cutout pictures. And we're like, what's going on? Like there was cutout pictures. I'm like, this is bizarre, man. Mm-hmm. So it was weird, man. It was it's going to be chapter 35 in my book.
There you go.
The pandemic. Yeah. But we survived it. So I'm grateful.
I think it was great too for the average fan or young athletes to watch it on TV or get the chance to see. It was a little more intimate, because you could hear, like you said, you could hear everything. Even on TV, you can hear so much more.
Yeah.
And, for young athletes that maybe don't think that they talk so much on defense and at the college or whatever it is, I mean, you can hear everything. And so I did appreciate that aspect of it.
Yeah. You're not the only one. Like guys shared that with me. They were like, you guys were so specific in what you wanted to get done. And to me, I'm like, yeah, that's what we do every day. Yeah. And guys were like, yeah, but we never heard it before unless we came to practice.
Yeah.
Like I can hear you on TV. Yeah. I can hear whatever the action that you're trying to run, or whatever the defensive scheme that you guys are trying to do. And so it's interesting, because guys are like fascinated by that. Yeah. But for us, it's like every day, right? We're just we're yelling out the command, and the only difference is that there was no one in the arena. So to your point, guys can hear you.
Yeah,
it was interesting. It was an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, we don't sit there and watch film for no reason, right?
Right. Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right.
Your childhood, Coach, talk a little bit about where you grew up, what that was like. Yeah. Any influences in your life that made you want to coach?
You know what? I grew up, let me start off by saying I grew up in the Bronx, New York. Mm-hmm. And I grew up right by Yankee Stadium.
Nice.
Like, my mom still lives there. She's a typical New Yorker. She's been in New York in the same apartment, same building since 1972.
Wow.
So that's what is it, 48 years of her life in the same 2-bedroom apartment. And so that's where I grew up at. And I grew up in a part of New York at that time that was a really, really rough part. Mm-hmm. It was hard. It was hard living the 80s in New York City, drug, poverty, all that stuff. So that my upbringing really, really shaped who I am today in regards to being tough and understanding people. Like I had to read people. Like today, it's amazing today with social media. Like if I don't like you or if I'm opinionated, I can go on Instagram and make a comment, and then you get upset and you send me a mad emoji face, and I can send you a madder emoji face. But in my neighborhood, there was no social media in 1980.
You just had to do it.
It was like if you said something to the wrong guy, it could cost your life.
Yeah.
So I, at an early age, I learned people. I understood people. I knew like, don't mess with that guy. That guy can really hurt you. Or I learned like that guy is loud, but I'm okay with that guy.
Yeah.
And you know, in today's day and age, everything is categorized. Like you got AAU, so you or high school, you play freshman, JV, varsity. You played AAU with the 13s, 15-year-olds, 17-year-olds. But back then there was no AAU, so you just had to sit down and wait for next. I got next, but I'm 13, and there's a guy who just got out of prison yesterday who was from my neighborhood. My neighborhood who's 18, and he wants to play, and it's your decision to figure out. I don't want him to play with me, but you got to figure that out at that moment. Yeah. So that dynamic of, okay, how am I going to survive the day? I got to get this big sucker on my side so he can like me. and I got to also tell him like, yo, I'm not picking you for this game. And I can't go over the top and fake it because I'm not, you know, he's a real guy. Yeah, on the streets, but I can't be a punk either. So I got to figure out that fine line. And all those skills that I've learned back in New York served me well in life. And they certainly served me well in coaching because our profession, as you well know, is about people. Mm-hmm. How do you interact with them? How do you read them? How do they read you? Body language, energy. And so my neighborhood has had a huge influence on me. And so I was born in Puerto Rico. Raised in New York, both of my parents are Puerto Rican. My real name is Jose Luis Martin. That's my real name. My nickname is Chuck. Yeah. That was given to me a long time ago in the Bronx, and it just kind of stuck. And I played high school ball at a really good high school in New York, St. Raymond's High School, who's produced tons of players who've gone on to play in college and, you know, some of them play in the NBA. And then I went to Monmouth University, which is in the Jersey Shore, played there, Division I, small little Division I program. And then I came back after I graduated and became a high school teacher. Nice. So I taught for 7 years before I got into college coaching. Wow. I was a high school teacher at a school, LaSalle Academy, which is on the Lower East Side of New York, which is at the bottom of Manhattan. And I was living in the Bronx. And the commute was a bear. So mm-hmm. Then when there was an opening at my old high school, my alma mater, which was closer to me where I was living, I transferred. And I started teaching and coaching at St. Raymond's. And I taught there for 4 years. Mm-hmm. So I taught for 7 years, high school. And at LaSalle, when I was there, on my freshman team for about 10 days, he's called Meta World Peace today. Yeah. But back then he was Ron Artest. Oh, wow. So I had Ron Artest on my team, my freshman team, for like maybe 10 days. And I told my assistant, I said, you see that kid right there, man? We're not going to have him. He's not going to be with us. And my assistant at the time was a guy named Mike. I can't think of Mike's name because it's so long ago. But Mike was great. He was like, nah, coach, he's a great kid. He's not a troublemaker. I think he thought I was referring that he was a bad kid. I'm like, no, man, this guy's too good. This guy's like a 14-year-old. He's like 6'7" already, like 200 pounds. I'm not keeping this guy. Yeah. So like, sure enough, 2 weeks later, the high school varsity coach, who's a legendary coach, Bill Aber, called me in his office and he was like, yo, man, like, you're not keeping that guy. So I had Ron Artest for like 10 days, although he was in my homeroom. So, you know, you got a chance to interact with him. But really the best player in the school was not Ron Artest. Or the best player at LaSalle Academy, if you can believe it or not, was a guy named Shamgod Wells.
Shamgod.
Yeah, so Sham was he was a point guard at LaSalle Academy. And so he was in my classroom, and he was our starting point guard at LaSalle. And that year, he became a McDonald's All-American, and then he was recruited heavily throughout the country and decided to go to Providence College. But Shamgod Wells was a hell of a high school player.
Yeah.
And obviously he's well known today for the move
Yeah.
that everybody does, the Sham God.
Every kid in
And
school wants to be the sham god.
yeah. So it's that's how I kind of started my coaching career. You know, it was I was really a teacher, and they needed help with the JV team and the freshman team rather. So I coached the freshman team. And I was an assistant on the varsity team. And so yeah, I had Ron and Sham. I did that for 3 years, and then I went to St. Raymond's. And then we were fortunate, you know, we had a bunch of really good players there who went on to play high major Division I. And after my 7th year, going into my 7th year, I got the bug. I got the coaching bug because I never planned out that I was going to be a coach. I just wanted to be a teacher. And then it hit me. I want to try to see if I can do this at a higher level. And so I remember talking to the principal and kind of saying like, hey, you know, I'm going to resign next week. Wow. And he was just kind of like, I remember he just kept saying, but you got insurance. That's all he kept saying. You got insurance. And I'm like, his name was Father Frank was his name. And it was a Catholic school. And I'm like, Father, I get that, but I want to chase this dream. And he just kept saying, do you understand how expensive insurance is? You got insurance here. I'm like, you know, medical benefits. And, but no, I chased my dream and I resigned. And then I became the director of a group called the Hoop Group, okay, which is, you know, camps, clinics. I did that for a year. And then a year later, 10 months later, I got my first Division I job at Manhattan College with a guy named Bobby Gonzalez. And I had no experience. And I got the job with another young guy who's done really well. He's now the head coach of the Denver Nuggets. So Mike Malone and I were
that's crazy
his first hires. Wow. And so me and Mike we were young. We were kids. We didn't know. Like, so we, you know, you're in there early at 6:30 in the morning. You're there till midnight. You know, you're working your butt off. And then, you know, you fast forward 25, 30 years, and Mike's done an unbelievable job with his career.
Heck of a job. Yeah.
Yeah. So Mike now is he's been in the NBA for a number of years. This is his second stint as a head coach in the NBA. And he did a tremendous job last year in the playoffs.
Absolutely.
So, but that was the start of my coaching career. It was me and I was young and another young assistant, Mike Malone. We never knew each other. We never met before. We were on the staff, and then, you know, we just got to work. And before you know it, our careers started to take off. And Mike stayed 1 or 2 years. I went on to UMass, and I went to UMass, then I went to Drexel University, and then I came back home to St. John's University, which was a big deal for me. Yeah. If you grew up in New York at that time, it wasn't Carolina or Duke.
Well, St. John's was a big deal.
Yeah, St. John's. And when I first got there, I think it's changed a little bit. But when I first got there, St. John's was still the 6th time winningest program in the history of college basketball. I know people don't view St. John's that way anymore because it hasn't made that dramatic impact in the tournament lately. But when I got there, which was 2003, I think, 2004, they were the 6th all-time winningest program in college basketball history. So I grew up with Mark Jackson, Walter Berry, Chris Mullin.
Wow.
So all of a sudden, Luke Carnesecca was the coach. And then all of a sudden, you know, I find myself at Madison Square Garden on the bench on national TV. I'm a New York kid. It was like this is unbelievable. Like, we're playing St. John's and like, you know, you're on CBS. It was crazy. It was like what just happened? And so I did that for 3 years at St. John's with Norm Roberts, who was is a tremendous coach. And then I got a phone call from John Calipari, who was like, yo, man, you know, what are your thoughts? Come to Memphis. We're going to win a national championship. You know, I'm like, okay, whatever. I was happy at St. John's, and I just got married a few years earlier. I got a young family. Yeah. And Memphis was like the Deep South. I've never been to the Deep South before. You know, I'm from New York. But Cal was like, hey, you know, come on down. We got something special. And sure enough, we had an incredible, 2-year run.
Yeah.
And, you know, went undefeated back-to-back years in Conference USA. Went to the Elite Eight my first year, and then went to the national championship game my second year.
What was that experience like? Is that tournament run?
The national championship one?
Yeah, that one.
That was incredible, man, because, you know, last night everyone was talking about the undefeated team. Gonzaga, can they do it? Can they do what Indiana did in '96? What gets lost, like every once in a while, not often, when I do things like this, it reminds me of how good we were. So I start to Google the 2008 Memphis Tiger team, and it's always listed like, and it's, you can argue about it, right? You can make an argument either way, but most people have them like in the top 10 like greatest teams to play college basketball.
Wow.
And what happens is like it gets you forget about it because it was 2008, but we only lost one game that year.
Wow.
We lost to Tennessee, but we went into the national championship game with one loss on our record, and we played everybody. We played Arizona, Georgetown, and we played everybody under the sun. We beat them. We beat Gonzaga. We beat everybody. So like that was unbelievable. Like you lost one game the whole year, and I mean we were rolling. You beat Michigan State. I mean we beat some big time programs, and you're winning. You're in the national championship game. You're like 7 minutes away from winning it. And you know I'm a humble kid from the Bronx, and on staff we had Rod Strickland, who was a hell of a NBA player. Yeah. So me and Rod Strickland are we're good friends. We're tight. And I remember him and I on the bench. When you go to the national championship game, they have a book. I still have it. And what they do is in the book, the team that wins the national championship, their picture is in the book forever. Yeah. So for the next 100 years, every national championship team from the previous year is in the book. Yeah. The runner-up just gets their name. So when we're up in that game, like at the 6 minute mark, the 4 minute mark, I never forget like looking at Rod Strickland, like smiling, something along the lines like, we're going to be in the book with Jordan, you know, because Jordan went to Carolina.
Yeah.
And then like disaster happened. Joey Dorsey got the foul. He fouled out. And then, you know, Chalmers hits the shot to take it to overtime and then, you know, lost the game. But it was a surreal experience, man, because it was that team was like a bunch of rock stars. Yeah. Like that team was like, you couldn't go anywhere. And part of it was, you know, Coach Calipari had that thing about him. Everybody wanted to be around him, autographs, pictures, all that stuff. And then you had Derrick Rose, and you had a cast of guys who were really good. And then you had the assistant coaches who we were colorful in our own way. Yeah. So that team was a fun team to be a part of. It had a lot of swagger, but it also had a lot of substance. Yeah. Like that team worked really hard. That team was committed. That team was willing to fight for one another. That team was not afraid of adversity. And so it was a fun year. And then, you know, you finally get to the national championship game, and, you know, it was 80,000 people at the Alamo Dome. It was crazy. It was like, you know, celebrities were there. Yeah. You're looking, it's like, yo, look at that actor or that musician. And they all wanted to be a part of it. They wanted to be in your locker room. So it was a surreal experience, man. And, you know, most guys don't get a chance to experience that. So I'm grateful that myself and my family were able to go through it. And in hindsight, you realize like how many good teams you beat to get to the national championship game. Like we beat a really good UCLA team by 16, 17 points, who had Russell Westbrook at the point, who had Kevin Love at the center spot. I mean, like they had one of the Drew brothers. Yeah. Like they were like really freaking good, man. And when we beat them like really bad to go to the finals, and we had the game won against Kansas, and, you know, it went all downhill, man, in overtime.
Dang, Mario Chalmers shot.
Chalmers, man. I saw Chalmers years later at Indiana. Him, Victor Oladipo, and all these guys came to Indiana to work out for 3 days. Mm-hmm. And so we worked them out for 3 days, you know. And Chalmers doesn't remember, but I remember bringing it up. I'm like, yo, bro, you hit that shot in 2008. I was on staff. Oh, we bust out laughing. But no, it was an awesome experience to you know, coach at that level. Yeah. In that game was like incredible. It changed your life. It changed your life. Change your career. It changed your career.
So then from Memphis, you go to Indiana?
No, I'm at Memphis, and then I get the head coaching job at Marist,
there you go,
which is a small Division I program in New York City, upstate New York, about an hour away. Okay. And, you know, it was a big deal for me and to come back home. And it was a challenge. I knew it was going to be a challenge because they had struggled in the past. but that kind of drew me to that place. You know, I wonder if I can do this. And then I struggled. The truth of the matter, I struggled to win games there. And so eventually it was a good experience because I got a chance to be a head coach, run my own program.
Yes, sir.
I'm better today than I ever was when I first started. When I first started coaching as a head coach was 2008.
Okay.
So that's almost like 13 years ago. When I got fired was 2013. So again, 8 years ago. So I'm just so much better because I had so many more experiences after Marist.
Okay.
But I learned a lot. And so I was a head coach for 5 years. I got let go. And then I hooked up with the Oklahoma City Thunder in the NBA. But I wasn't coaching. I was doing front office scouting work.
Gotcha.
And that was interesting because they had actually offered me the job the year before while I was at Marist. And I got a good friend of mine who's now the president and GM of the Detroit Pistons, Troy Weaver. Him and I started out AAU coaches. He used to coach a team called the DC Assault, and I used to coach the New York Ravens. And one summer, we would always like wind up in a championship game. That's how we got to know each other. And I tease him to this day. I said, "You were always a GM, man. You always had the better players. So you were always recruiting. You're always drafting." So that's how we met. And then fast forward, he calls me one day, and I'm the head coach at Marist, and he says, "Hey, my boss is coming to visit you at Marist." And I'm struggling at Marist. I'm not winning games. And I'm like, why would Sam Presti come to upstate New York to see me? Like, I don't have any players that you're going to draft. So, Troy Weaver says to me, "Hey, my boss is coming to spend time with you at Marist." So, that's like on a Thursday rather. Mm-hmm. And so next Tuesday, my secretary knocks on my door, and like she says, "Hey, Sam Presti." And so in my mind, I'm like, okay, just, put him through the phone, And she's like, "No, he's downstairs."
What the heck? Yeah.
And I'm like confused. I'm like, this guy's the president and GM of the Thunder, and they were good. Yeah. They had Durant, they had Harden, they had KD. I'm like, what's this guy doing here? Yeah. So sure enough, he spent the whole practice. He watched the practice. He hung out. We talked before and after, and we kept in touch. And then a few months later, he invited me to like a game at Oklahoma against the Spurs. And then we talked a little bit, and he offered me a position, but I wasn't ready to give up being a head coach. Yeah. And then I got fired a year later. Mm-hmm. And so I reconnected with Sam and Troy Weaver. So I worked with them for 1 year doing scouting, and I learned a lot. I mean, that was probably one of the most productive years of my career, just understanding how a front office works, why they draft, why they don't draft, why they trade, why they don't trade. And then I did that for a year, and then I hooked up at Indiana with Tom Bean, was there for 3 years, won a Big Ten championship in 2016, went to the Sweet 16, and then I hooked up with Frank, and I've been with Frank here in South Carolina. This is the end of my 4th year.
Nice.
In South Carolina. So it's been a good run, man, for kid from the Bronx, Puerto Rican kid from the Bronx. It's been great.
That's pretty storybook, Coach. I mean, you've had some pretty amazing experiences. So right now you're with Frank at South Carolina.
Yeah.
What does the day like for you right now look like as an assistant coach at South Carolina?
Well, right now we're doing individual work with some of the kids in the program. Now with the new rules with the transfer portal, we're trying to find guys that fit our culture. We're trying to find guys that fit our needs. Mm-hmm. So it's a constant, never-ending phone call, email, text message, trying to gather information, intel, who's available, who isn't available, who do I need to talk to get in touch with this kid. So, recruiting never ends, right? It's the bloodline of every program. So you wake up in the morning and you for me, the way I've usually done it in my career is if you reach out to them like they're a family member, I check in on my wife, my kids, and then whoever I'm recruiting, hey, what's up? What's going on? And you check in with his people throughout the day. And then before you go to bed, like your family, you hug everybody, you kiss them, good night, I love you.
Yeah.
So that's how I'm used to doing it. It takes a lot of effort to do it that way. It takes a lot of energy to do it that way. but I think it comes across what it is, which is a genuine connection with people. And so yeah, right now we're like everyone else, trying to find the needs for our program, and that never ends, because it's midnight here, but it's only 3 in the afternoon in Europe.
Yeah.
It's only 9 o'clock on the West Coast. So it's a constant treadmill. You're just trying to keep this thing going. So,
I can tell just from our conversation here and the conversation we've had, over the past couple of weeks, that you're a pretty genuine person, and so I'm sure
I try to be.
Yeah, I'm sure those recruits
Yeah.
can appreciate it.
Yeah, I try to be. It's so hard to be someone else, right? I think that's one of the biggest mistakes people make in life, but particularly when you're young. You're still trying to find your voice. You're trying to find your inner voice. You're trying to find your spirit. You're trying to figure out how do you do this? What's going to be your coaching philosophy, style? How do you interact with people? And so when you're trying to find those answers, you sometimes try to be someone else.
Yeah.
You try to model someone else, and it's okay to try to model their style, but ultimately you got to be true to who you are, because you can't fool people. Eventually, people see through you. Absolutely. And they figure out, like, this guy's not genuine. This guy, he's not real. He doesn't really know what he's talking about. So it takes so much effort to try to be someone else. I learned a long time ago. Going back to our original conversation about my neighborhood, like in my neighborhood, like, don't try to be someone else. Someone else can get you in trouble.
Yeah.
Let people know who you are. Like, yo, I'm a nice kid, right? I'm not a street kid. I'm not the softest kid, but I'm not out here losing my mind. Yeah. So that served me well today. Like, you got to be genuine, because if someone you're not, you're going to attract the wrong type of people. If you are who you are, then you're going to attract the people that are right for you, whether it's recruiting or relationships or anything along the lines with other, communicate with other people.
And I can tell, as far as relationships go, it's huge. I mean, how important is it for coaches out there, just, I guess, a piece of advice for coaches and players in general, just to cultivate those relationships amongst each other, within your program, within the people you work with on staff, other coaches that you're talking to and networking with?
Yeah, you got it. It's critical. It's everything. But it's not just in the basketball community. It's just in life, right? Like you're trying to build we essentially, I think, human beings. We're accustomed to being around people. We need to interact with people. Some people like the interaction to be more. Others want less. But ultimately, you need somebody. You need someone along the journey. So you got to really go out of your way to try to cultivate those relationships. I think the challenge today is you can do it in so many ways. Mm-hmm. And if you're a little bit older, like I'm a little bit older, I'm not like this, but some of the guys my age, they don't understand or don't want to understand social media.
Yeah.
So now it's like, well, you're eliminating one way to communicate with people. Yeah. So like, you can't be the old guy. You can't be like, oh, I'm not going on Twitter. I don't understand Instagram. Like, bro, you can't, if you want to communicate with people, this is how kids communicate. This is how people communicate. Yeah. And I'm not saying it's the only way to do it, but you certainly got to grow and evolve and figure out how to use these great tools that are available today that weren't available 20 years ago. If technology, if this were 20 years ago, you and I would never meet.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You're in a different part of the country, so am I. But because of technology, it allows me to connect with you on social media. And now you and I can do this. We can connect, we can interact and see each other. We can bounce ideas off each other. I can ask you, hey, what do you think about attacking a 1-3-1? You can say, hey, what do you think about attacking, a sagging man-to-man defense? Yeah. So for me, it's exciting that technology provides us the ability to interact with people all over the world that 20 years ago, I wouldn't be able to do this. I wouldn't even know you existed, and you wouldn't know that I exist. Yeah. Instead, you and I are connected on a Tuesday night and via Zoom.
And I'll even go a little deeper, not deeper, I guess a little sooner in the timeline, where since the lockdowns happened when COVID started, it kind of forced a lot of different professions to go online, and it allowed, I connected with more coaches through Zooms and social media 100 times more than I did before. I mean, I talked to coaches, but mostly coaches in my area, in my region,
Sure. Yeah.
but when all of that happened, everybody just hopped online, and there was Zoom clinic after Zoom clinic after Zoom clinic and meeting after meeting online, that you just had a chance to really interact with so many more people.
Yeah. It's an amazing thing with the technology today. I was having a conversation with a friend who's older, who's in the coaching profession, and he was asking me, because he sees I'm active on social media. Yeah. So he was asking me about certain things. And I just kind of told him, I said, yo, you got to evolve. I said, I don't need to set up an appointment with a secretary to talk to the general manager of the Dallas Mavericks. I could just DM him. Yeah. I could just send him a message through Twitter. Yeah. And today, most GMs, presidents, people in those positions, they're younger than us. Yeah. So social media is like it's a tool, it's a phone call. And I gave him an example of, I wanted to communicate with someone in the NBA, and what I did was I watched one of the games that they were playing in, and they ran good action. So all I did was I went back to my office and I diagrammed the action on my grease board, and I did it frame by frame by frame. I took a snapshot of it and I sent it to one of the general managers and presidents of an NBA team. Like, I just did it through Twitter. And he got back to me like in 3 minutes. I never met him before in my life. And all I said was, watch your game last night, really good action. And I want to, in 3 or 4 minutes, he replied and said, we got a creative staff. We're excited and fortunate to have the staff. And then all of a sudden, like, me and the president of this NBA team, who I've never met physically, we speak like once a month.
Wow.
I don't need a secretary. I didn't need an agent to set up the appointment. I didn't need to fly to the city. I just literally pressed send, and then he got it, and he responded. And that's the beauty of today with technology, that you can connect with people all over the world, and you can connect with people that 20 years ago you probably couldn't, because there was a barrier. There was a physical barrier. I can't get to Dallas. I can't get to Europe. Well, that doesn't exist anymore. It's all whatever world you can create in your mind, it's there for you. You just gotta view it that way. You gotta make a shift in your mind. And this particular coach, who I know really well, it was so simple. He was like, no way. I said, I'm serious. Try it. Sure enough, like 3 weeks later, he got in touch with an NBA guy, and he was just shocked that they responded. He was shocked that he got through to them. And I said, that's because you're thinking like a 55-year-old guy. I'm like, these guys, this is how they communicate. This is what you do. And so it's awesome. It's great, man. I love it.
I literally did that last week with a college guy. I liked the action they ran. We had similar personnel. I thought, well, no, that could be useful to what we do. Let me hit him up. I don't know him really. I just hopped in his DM.
Yeah.
He said, hey, here's my phone number. Call me. We could talk about it. So
yeah.
And we just talked about, just how they implement what they do. What is the thought process behind it? What are you teaching every day? What are you, focusing on and keying in on? And I mean, I didn't really know the guy. I just hit him up in his DM,
right,
and asked him for some advice, And most people are pretty good about it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And so it goes back to your initial conversation about, how do you cultivate that those relationships? How do you do that? Well, that's how you do it with kids today. You post something, they like it. They post something, I like it. They're aware that I'm there. Yeah. I'm aware that they're there. Images are important to these guys, these younger guys. And so it's important to touch them in different ways. Some days it's sitting down with them one-on-one, face-to-face. Other days is, like, hey, wishing them a happy birthday on Twitter. Yeah. It's but you got to find different ways to keep the relationship going.
Absolutely. And they like that social media praise for everybody to see it. I mean,
yeah.
I told my assistant coach, I just hired him. I was like, look, I try to stay pretty active with our program. Even though it's a high school, we don't have like a social media advisor or nothing. We just kind of have to do it ourselves. I said, but these kids like it. They enjoy it when you praise them online. I said, I don't have a problem with. So
yeah, it's a different world that we live in, and they were born into this world.
yeah,
So this is normal to them.
all they
This is
know.
expected. For us, it's not. Or at least for me, it's not. So I'm adapting. But for them, an 18-year-old kid is like, yeah, well, you should interact with me. That's how I communicate with people through social media.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
You talked about being yourself, but it's okay to kind of look at somebody and take what you can from each. Who are some guys that you've learned from, some mentors of yours in the coaching profession?
I've been super fortunate, man, to work for really good coaches, really good people. And I'll start off with Frank Martin. Frank's a winner, man. He's got a great story. Like Frank Martin is like the American story, right?
Yeah.
Like, come from some Cuban descent in Miami, fighting the good fight, trying to live a better life, high school coach, bouncer. He's worked all these jobs, and then all of a sudden he's in the Final Four.
Yeah.
It's a great story. It's an incredible story. Like if you made a movie out of it, people wouldn't believe it.
Yeah.
So I learned a lot from Frank, man. Learned a lot about, coaching. I've learned a lot about life, his life experiences. So he's been tremendous. Tom Crean, who's now the head coach at Georgia, I was with him at Indiana. He's another guy. He's got an incredible story. It's not like he played at high level basketball in college. He's not an NBA player, and all of a sudden he becomes the head coach of one of the most iconic programs in the history of American sports at Indiana.
Yeah.
So I learned how to deal with adversity. Indiana was a tough place to coach. It was a good thing because the expectations were so high.
Yeah.
So you learn how to perform under enormous amount of pressure every night. So I learned that from Tom. Tom was tremendous there. And then, obviously I worked for Cal. So Cal was great. He's just one of those guys. He's talented. He's got a gift for connecting with people. He's got a gift for instilling confidence in people. So I learned that from him. Like, you get people to believe, you can do it.
Yeah.
You got to get them to believe in whatever the mission is. So Cal has that talent. And all the other guys, Bruiser Flint, Norm Roberts, all those guys I worked for, that gave me an opportunity. I was able to essentially go behind the curtain, right? Like so many people what's it like to be a Division I assistant or a head coach, or what's it like to work for Frank Martin or John Calipari or Tom Crean, Norm Roberts, Bruce. So I've been given the opportunity to go behind the curtain and see and look and like, okay, this is how you do it. So all those guys have influenced me, and they've all influenced me on and off the court, and I've been able to kind of take a little bit from everyone and use it the way I see fit, with my personality, and trying to be true to myself, which is really hard because people always want you to be something else. Yeah. They want you to be more clean cut. You're too clean cut. They want you to have street cred. Oh, not that much. It's too much street. Everyone's swaying you left and right. Yeah. So you got to find out how to be true to yourself and not get lost in. You're not going to be John Calipari. You can't coach like John Calipari. You can't coach like Tom Crean. You can't coach like Frank Martin. But you can take all the great qualities that those guys have and then use it to your advantage.
Absolutely.
So I've been lucky that way. I've been real fortunate.
Absolutely. Extremely fortunate. I mean,
yeah, no doubt. 100%, man.
To learn from guys, some of the best of the best.
Some of the best of the best, man. And, growing up, 1979, 1980, if someone said, hey, this is going to be your career, most people probably would not believe it, right?
Yeah.
If someone said, hey, you're going to coach in the national championship game, the Final Four, you're going to be a head coach, you're going to work in the NBA, you're going to work at Indiana. It's like, dudes will be like, Chuck, I love you, but stop. Yeah. That's never going to happen. So for me, it's been an unbelievable ride, man. And in my mind, I'm like, it's not, I'm not at my end. In my mind, I've been doing it for a while, but I wake up every day with enthusiasm of like, what's next? I want to see something new. I want to do something new. I want to experience something new. So for me, this is a never-ending journey. This thing's just going to keep going until someone says, like, "Yo, man, enough, stop." Like you've been doing this too long.
Probably your wife before anybody.
Yeah. Until I'm home for like 3 days, and she's like, "Yo, go back out.
Go find a job.
Go get a job, man. Like, I was wrong. You've been home for 3 days. No, go back out."
Yeah, when you love what you do, though, I mean, it's the same old adage that people use all the time, but you never feel like you work a day in your life.
So true.
7 years as a head coach, 10, 11 as just coaching in general, I feel like I just started. I feel like, I don't know, I just wake up every day with this excitement and thrill, and
a
little too hyper sometimes when I get to work. I'm like, let's get after it. And people are like, it's 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. You gotta. But I'm just excited. We just get to do something we're passionate about.
No, it's very few guys experience what you and I experience, and so it's hard for them to understand. Like, why are you so happy? Like, what are you so excited about? Like, calm down. Yeah. And it's like, well, I'm not working. I'm passionate about the thing that I love to do. And, I'm 51 and my body tells me I'm 51 at times, but my spirit is that of a young guy, of a 16, 17-year-old, like that enthusiasm to go to work, go to practice, teach, do individual work. And, when you get that feeling, it's like, yeah, this is awesome. This is unbelievable, because there are other people who make a good living. They make a lot of money, but they can't feel what you and I feel.
Yeah.
They can't get that satisfaction that you and I get from doing what we do. Absolutely. So it's a neat thing to be a part of.
So you've worked for some of the best, like we talked about a little while ago. I mean, Kyle and Coach Martin, and so what are some things you would tell a young man right now, an athlete, high school athlete, what are some of the expectations going into playing for somebody like Calipari or Frank?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is, and it's hard for young people to understand this. You've got to want to be a part of something greater than yourself. Mm-hmm. If it's all about you, in the long run, you're never going to reach your dream just by yourself. Yeah. And the more talented you are, the more people you need to help you, because that dream is bigger. Yeah. You got a lot of talent. I want to play in the NBA. You got unbelievable talent. I want to be an all-star in the NBA. You have elite talent. You want to win an NBA championship. I think people think the more talented you are, I can do it by myself. No, because the more talented you are, the more ambitious you are. Mm-hmm. The goals are greater. The thing that you're trying to accomplish is greater. So you need people around you. So you gotta want to be a part of something greater than yourself. Yeah. And that's hard for people to understand, because they see it through their lens. I want to go to Kentucky and I want to play and I want to be a star there. Yeah, but as good as you are, you're never going to be as good as all the all-time greats that are ever played there. Yeah. Like Kentucky's had some really good players, but they're never going to be as good as, they got a laundry list of how many guys have played at Kentucky. So you got to be willing to say, I'm going to give of myself to Kentucky, and in return, Kentucky's going to give me everything it has. And then together in that marriage, it's going to take off. South Carolina, went to the Final Four 4 years ago. Frank's an incredible coach. We had Sindarius Thornwell, NBA, PJ Dozier, NBA, Chris Silva, NBA. Like, you can't come to South Carolina and say, hey, I want to take over. I want to be the guy. No, you want to be a part of it. And if you're a part of it and help us, we're going to help you. And together we're going to create this magic of going to the Final Four. Yeah.
Coaches as well. I mean, you've worked a long career so far, a beautiful career with some amazing coaches. Some advice you get some young coaches out there, whether they want to get in high school or college, it doesn't matter, just in general.
Yeah, I think they gotta really want to do this. I think they gotta do it, whether they get a Nike contract, Under Armour contract, Adidas contract, or they get no contract. You got to have a passion in your belly to teach. Yeah. Like, don't chase the money. And I think too often people are chasing the money, and they're chasing the notoriety. They want to be recognized on Instagram, on Twitter. They want somebody to say, oh, that's the best recruiter in the state of Texas. That's the best individual workout guy in the state of Texas. So I don't view it that way. My thing is enjoy the craft. Like, be really good at the craft. You know, teach. For me, it was teaching. I love teaching. I love being on the court. So I never got consumed with the notoriety. I got excited with the craft. Be a good teacher. Be a good developer. And what I've learned is when you do that, whether you want it or not, the notoriety comes anyway. Yeah. Because someone says, man, that kid Shamgot's pretty good. Well, who do you work out with? Well, I work out with this guy. You know, so it's going to come to you if you're true to the craft.
Absolutely.
And so too often, I think today guys want a nickname, or they want an Instagram hook or something. It's like, I don't get it. I'm like, yo, just be good at it. Be a good teacher. Be a good communicator. My everyone's goal and my dream is, in my mind is, your goal should be to elevate that kid, whoever that kid is. Yeah. If that kid is if he can max out as a Division III player, you should feel an excitement that you can get him and develop him to a Division III program. If that kid maxes out as a Division II player, there should be an excitement about you getting the best out of him so he can become the best Division II player there is. Yeah. And too often in today's day and age, if there's a Division III player, Division II player, a lower Division I player, no one wants to work out with him.
Yeah.
No one wants to develop that guy, because really what they've done is they want to work out the All-American because they want the notoriety. Mm-hmm. They want to be on Instagram with the lottery pick.
Yeah.
So then when you take a photo of the lottery pick or the All-American, you're in the photo. So then you can post it on Instagram and say, yo, great workout with my man, whoever.
Yeah.
And so to me, I struggle with that because that guy doesn't need you.
Yeah.
Kevin Durant out of high school, he's 7 feet tall, 2 guard.
Yeah.
He doesn't, you can work him out for a year, every day, for three times a day. He doesn't need you at that particular stage of his life to show him how to handle it.
Yeah.
You know, now he can learn something from you, but he doesn't need you.
Yeah.
So my thing is, if you're a coach, I've always taken pride in, I'm going to help the guy who they think stinks.
Yeah.
I'm going to help develop the kid who everyone says that kid sucks. I've always gravitated to that guy. And I've been fortunate to be around, you know, the Derrick Roses of the world too, which is kind of cool to work those guys out and learn from them, and those guys learn from you. But my initial instincts have always been, who is the guy that's not getting the attention? Who's the guy that doesn't have notoriety? Who's the guy that they say is not a very good player? That's the guy that I usually instinctively gravitate to, because in my mind, I say, I can help that guy.
Yeah.
I can help him maximize his potential. So that would be my advice to young coaches. Like you want to prove your worth. You want to show that you're a really good coach, good developer. Walk in the gym and gravitate to the kid who's not supposed to be the All-American. Mm-hmm. Let me see you work with that guy. Yeah. In a month, in a year. Let me see how far he's come. Yeah. And if he maxes out as a Division II player and everyone thought that he was a non-scholarship player, you did a phenomenal job.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Now, you're not going to get the recognition for it because he's a Division II player. You're not going to be on Instagram or Twitter, but you in your heart know, like, man, I did a good job with that kid.
Help this guy out. Yeah.
Yeah, help that guy out. So that's how I've always been. I've always taken pride or an excitement of, like, I can help that guy. I know I can help that guy. And then along the way, what happens is, this is the interesting thing. The guys who are the All-Americans, the guys that are the first-round draft picks, they recognize, they watch, mm-hmm. and they say, that guy is invested in that kid so much. Imagine what he would do if he worked me out. They watch, they see, mm-hmm. and they're saying, that coach right there is really good, because no one wanted to work out that kid. No one talked to that kid. No one invested in that kid. See, right. Kids are not dumb.
No.
They're young, but they're not dumb. And when you walk in the gym and they walk in the gym, they know. They can read situations. They can read 100%. Body language. And they know they may be respectful because they're young, but they know like that coach he never works that guy out.
Yeah.
And over time they recognize like, you're just doing it for self-serving reasons.
Yeah.
You just want to work me out so you can get the credit for it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the end of it. Like if you invested in the kids who weren't as talented, over time people watch. And now the better players say, you know what, I want to work out with that guy. That guy's really good. That guy's taking his time. That guy's in it for the right reasons. He's not trying to use me.
Yeah, I tell coaches all the time, it's like, look, man, they'll know if you come in the gym and you're not genuine and you don't really care about them. They'll read right through it, and if that happens, and then you've lost them. But they can see it, like you said, right? As soon as you walk in the gym, they know if you're full of crap or not.
Right? Yeah, no question. You know, I was watching an interview about a year ago about Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson was being interviewed, and he had like some really interesting ideas. He says, you know, you're not your age and you're not your name. Like people, we introduce ourselves. Hey, my name is Chuck Martin. I'm 51, but that's not really who you are. People feel your energy.
Yeah.
Whatever your energy is, that's who you are, not your name and your age. So people have that mistaken. They think, hey, I'm the assistant coach at South Carolina. I'm the assistant coach at, Memphis, Indiana. Hey, I'm the head coach at Marist. That's not who you are. That's just a title. Who you are is your energy.
Yeah.
And when they feel your energy, they know who you are. And that's where I think a lot of people, particularly young people, get lost in our profession. They want to say, yeah, I was Zion Williamson's workout guy, but I don't feel your energy. I don't feel you. So it doesn't really mean anything to me. And I think if more people took that approach, because I think the people who are really alert and aware, you can tell me the president of the United States, they don't feel it. They don't, there's an old saying, they can call you coach, but it doesn't mean you can.
Yeah.
So like they got it. You can have a title all you want. They got to feel your energy.
Well, I appreciate your energy, man. Because that allowed the assistant coach of South Carolina that's had an amazing career to link up with a high school coach out of Texas. And,
no, we're connected, man. I was a high school coach for 7 years.
Yeah. I'm
a teacher at heart, regardless of what I've done. You and I we come from the same fraternity.
Yes,
we're
sir.
Teachers.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it, man. Touch on, those guys, but then you mentioned the Derrick Roses. He's one of the most explosive athletes of all time.
Yeah.
Pretty remarkable. What was it like watching him work out during that time?
He was incredible, and I learned a lot with Derrick Rose. I was a young coach. I want to say I had been coaching, let me see, 1, 2. I had only been maybe a coach at that time on a collegiate level, maybe 6 years, 7 years. And I had not ever been around a player of that magnitude. I was in the Big East at St. John's. We had some good players, but we never had a guy like Derrick Rose.
Yeah.
So that was an incredibly interesting time that I learned. And what I learned was that when guys are special like him, like they're teaching you, and you can't be stubborn and say, I'm the head coach, I'm the assistant, you're trying to teach him. He's a once in a lifetime talent. So there were things that we wouldn't allow other guys to do, but we let Derrick do it because his talent allowed him to do it. And you could have been stubborn and say, make a chest pass with 2 hands, which is fundamentally correct, and they should. But Derrick could jump 40 inches in the air and make a pass with 1 hand to like 30 feet away to the weak side corner for a 3. And you're like, your gut says, don't let him do that. But you're like, he can do that.
Yeah.
So you learn from him. And the other thing that I learned from him was when I was prior to Memphis, I was in programs that you had to grind it out. Like you weren't quite good enough. You were never the best team. And when I was at St. John's, we were a good team, but UConn was the best team. Syracuse was the best team. So we had to do everything perfect. And we had to do everything right just to be in the ball game. And at the end, you can steal the game with you can not out coach, but you can strategically win the game if you're just close enough. And I remember with Derek, my first time, the first 2 weeks, like he wasn't running hard enough, because I'm used to guys like, if you don't run hard enough, we're going to get blown out tonight. You got to run, you got to cut. And I remember being a young coach, like being like agitated and like, yo, man, you got to cut. Like, you got to go hard. And Coach Calipari would be like, don't yell at him. The crowd would be like, don't yell at Derek. And so I was young, and I was passionate. So I'm like, yo, this guy's got to cut. Like, I would be with the guards, right to left crossover, left to right crossover. So you got to have your, tight to the body, low below your knees. And Coach Cal be like, don't yell at him. Like, he's good. But that was my lack of experience, being around a guy that was that talented. And in my mind, I'm like, I know he's an All-American. I know he's really good, but yo, man, like he's got to do better. And then our first game, it hit me like, holy smokes, like this guy's really good. Like, his first game was like, it wasn't that he scored a lot. It was how fast he was. Like, it was like playing a video game. Like, all the drills that I tried to get him to do didn't matter.
Yeah.
So I got it. It was like, I don't need those drills. When the lights are on, I'm the best player in America. And I learned, like, okay, I got it. I understand what it means to coach an elite basketball player that's going to be the #1 pick in the NBA draft.
And
you can learn.
MVP,
yeah, future MVP, future Rookie of the Year. So that experience prepared me for Indiana. So when I got to Indiana, we had a bunch of pros. Mm-hmm. And not a bunch. We had a handful of pros. But I understood it. I got it. I'm like, okay, Yogi Farrell has a talent that maybe he can do that at 5'10". Usually you wouldn't allow a 5'10" guard do certain things, but him, you could let him do it. Troy Williams had a talent that wasn't really fundamentally sound at times, but he's such an explosive athlete that you're like, okay, you just got to put him in position to succeed. So that experience at Memphis with Derrick Rose prepared me for years later for the Indiana experience.
I love it, Coach. That's great insight, and it's always refreshing to hear coaches acknowledge when maybe they had a lack of experience or they just didn't know any better. But this is how I got better, learning through those moments. And so,
yeah, I would in high school. I was a young high school coach, and I would tell Shamgar, like, you can't do that.
Yeah,
that was really my first experience, to be honest, of learning. I was like, you can't. You gotta, I was a camp counselor.
Yeah.
So, hey, you got to go right to left crossover, left to right crossover. You got to tight to your body. And Sham was like, no, you could do this. And I would fight him on it. I'm like, you can't. Yeah. I'm like, you can't do that. And he would say to me, why not? I'm like, and my answer was really silly. My answer was like, because I said so, and it's not fundamentally sound.
Yeah.
And as I'm saying that, he's doing it against defenses.
Yeah. He's
getting away with it. I'm like, yo, you can't do that. And he's like, yes, you can. I just did it.
So
I learned, like, that's different. That's outside the box. And then it hit, like, that guy is great at that. Mm-hmm. And I need to learn that when someone's really good at whatever, that's a gift that they have. You can't box them in. You can't prevent them from being great. And he was great at that. Yeah. And too often as coaches, we try to prevent because it challenges our authority.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, there's some kids that can't do it, and they shouldn't do it. And they should never even think about doing that. But every once in a while, if you're fortunate enough, and I've been fortunate to run across some of those guys, I've learned, like, you're not supposed to do that, but he's so good he can do that. And you got to let him do it.
Yeah.
So then you learn.
Before we call this a day, Coach, a couple moments in your career where you realize, this is actually also much deeper than coaching the game of basketball, where you're impacting lives and things of that nature.
Oh, man, I've had so many of them, man. I've been so fortunate to have, like, really good players to go on to the NBA, but really I've had other, like, families. Mm-hmm. There's a family that calls you a year after a kid graduates and he's doing great. He's married. He's got kids. he bought his first house, and they send you a simple text like, "Yo, man, like I just want to thank you. I never told you this, but you impacted my life."
Mm-hmm.
And so I've had moments like that throughout my career where you're just at home with your family, or you're in the supermarket and you get a text message from a parent that you haven't talked to in like 10 years.
Yeah.
And then there's a text message from them saying, "Yo, Coach Martin, man, I just want to thank you. I'm 30, I'm married. Here's a photo of my kids. And, like you impacted me in a positive way."
Yeah.
I was in Atlanta 2 years ago recruiting. And my first job was Manhattan College. And one of my first recruits was a guy named David Holmes, who was a tremendous collegiate player. And I haven't seen David Holmes in like 12 years.
Yeah.
And I was in Atlanta recruiting. And after the games were over, myself and like 3 other coaches went to a local place to eat. And he was in there. He's from DC. It's like, what are you doing in Atlanta? But he's got to be at the time 29, 30. I mean, he's a big sucker, like 6'8", 6'7". And he ran over like he was a kid.
Coach.
And like big, like a genuine like hug. And he was with some people, and he just it was awesome because he just kind of told everybody, "Oh, this guy coached me, he changed my life." I came from a tough area in DC. I graduated from college. I got my degree. It hit me like, man, like I impacted that kid.
Yeah.
And so it was neat because that's how I view myself. I view myself as a teacher. I view myself as someone that wants to impact lives, help kids. And at that moment, it came to fruition in front of everybody. So it was like, man, that was a cool moment for me.
I love it. I love to hear stories like that, Coach. I think that's why a lot of us enjoy this profession so much. The X's and O's and the wins it's awesome. I think most of us probably have that inner competitive spirit where we hate to lose and we're going to do everything we can to win. But also those moments where you impacted a young man's life and you helped them in a positive way. I mean, those stories are refreshing.
They're great. They're great stories, and you've created a memory with someone.
Yeah.
Like you can't buy memories. That's you can buy a car, a house, you can go on vacation, you can do all these great things with finances, right? Mm-hmm. And we all need money, right? We all wish we had a little bit more money, but like the ultimate joy is when you create this magical moment, mm-hmm. whether it's a high school championship or a double overtime JV game. When your first year as a high school coach, and it meant something to you.
Yeah.
Like I've been to the Final Four, national championship game. All the things I've done in my career. I got a kick about a month ago when my high school, New York City's doing essentially they're talking about New York City basketball in the 80s, mm-hmm. and the 90s, and they created this T-shirt with all the high schools that played and some of the players that played during that era. And of all the things I've done in my career, I was so proud to put on a T-shirt with my high school on it because I created memories with those guys.
Yeah.
And so when, they asked me to wear the T-shirt and just say a few things about the high school and in the league, the New York City Catholic League, and then they posted that. And it was guys that I've not talked to in 20 years. And it was like, man, that's neat because we created memories 20 years ago, and it still means something to me, and it still means something to those guys. Absolutely. So it's neat. It's cool, man. I've been lucky that way.
Yes, sir. Well, Chuck, man, I genuinely appreciate your time, taking time out of your day to talk about life and hoops and everything else, man.
Man, I appreciate you having me, man. It's I love doing it. I love connecting with people, and it's always exciting to meet someone different from a different part of the country, and hopefully this is the beginning of a great friendship moving forward.
Absolutely, Coach. If you need something down the road, anything I can ever help with, just feel free to reach out.
Man, same here, man. You need anything on my end, don't hesitate to call, and I'm excited to see where this friendship goes here.
Yes, sir. Thanks, man. Thanks, Chuck. You have a good night.
You too, man. Appreciate you. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir.